Good afternoon. My name is Renia Shterenberg. I'm the executive director of the Bangor Symphony Orchestra, and we are about to embark on our pre-concert talk with some pretty special guest artists. So I want to take this opportunity here right in the beginning to introduce all of our watchers out there to who we're going to be having the honor of speaking with today. I'm going to start with our music director and conductor, Lucas Richman. Hi, Lucas.
Hi, Renia. Hi, everybody.
And then we have our flutist, our guest artist, Anthony Trionfo. Hi, Anthony.
Hello.
And we have our guest composer, Ellis Ludwig-Leone. Hello, Ellis.
Hi.
So here we go. We are going to now get into our pre-concert talk. I would like to thank our sponsors, UBS Argosy Wealth Management, for sponsoring this pre-concert talk. This is the third in our series. This one is for our Masterworks 3 concert, Ethereal Storytelling, which is coming up on February 1st. We would like to thank our sponsors. We have our pre-concert talk sponsor, UBS Argosy Wealth Management. We have our commission partner, the Ellis-Beauregard Foundation. Our guest artist sponsors, Tim and Mary Smith, along with our season sponsors, Karen Foxwell, Laura Kimball, Cork Subaru, and the University of Maine, and our media partners, Bangor Daily News, News Center Maine, Maine Public Classical, and Sutherland West End. So thank you to all our wonderful sponsors and partners. This program has 3 works on it. Starts with this world premiere called North Woods by Ellis. And then we are going to hear the wonderful Mozart Flute Concerto No. 1, played by Anthony. The live concert will have an intermission at that point, and then we move to Beethoven's 6th Symphony, his Pastoral. So I would now turn it over to Lucas. Lucas, take it away.
Well, thank you. And Anthony and Ellis, it's so great to have you both here with us. We hope that our weather is going to be a little warmer than it has been in Bangor.
It's been cold here, yeah.
Are you guys coming from warmer climes or similar?
New York for me,
New York.
so not really. I mean,
Yeah.
a little bit. But.
Yeah. Anthony, you're in New York as well?
I'm also in New York, but
Yeah.
I spent some time in northern Michigan, so I'm prepared.
Okay. All right. Well, but the music warms the heart, and we've got incredible music. Ellis, I want to talk a little bit about you and how you got to Bangor with this brand new piece that we're so excited to premiere. So first of all, the Ellis-Beauregard Foundation has been a partner with the Bangor Symphony for a national competition to select a composer who would write a new work. And I believe this was the 6th year, Renia, am I correct? That we did this.
7th, I believe, but
Uh,
6, 7. Oh gosh, I have to go look it up.
and typically there would be over 325 composers that submitted. So quite a large field, and you're the person who was chosen to write the piece
Congratulations,
for
yeah.
2025.
Very honored. Yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
What's always interesting is when the jury panel is looking at the submissions of the composers. You know, they're wanting to get a sampling, an idea of what is this composer like. The piece that the award doesn't go for a piece that had been written. It's to encourage somebody to write a new work. So maybe if you could start a little bit like when you submit your music, you're telling us about you, and what was it that you told us about you?
Well, I think when I submitted with a string quartet, and also like a chamber orchestra piece that I had written for a German chamber orchestra. And to be honest, both of those are much smaller ensembles. Even the chamber orchestra was like maybe 11 or 12 people. So when I submitted, I just sort of did it on a lark and didn't really think about it twice. And then when I got the call from the Ellis-Beauregard Foundation, I was obviously very, very honored and very excited. But I guess maybe what I was, the 2 pieces that I submitted, the chamber orchestra piece was called Hexentons, which was which means like witch dance, and it's a sort of this really um, sort of inspired by like circle dances and this sort of kind of intensity of sort of trying to connect with other musicians in this sort of very rhythmic way. And so I wanted to bring a kind of rhythmic excitement to the piece. And then the string quartet is a little bit more, it's a little thornier. It's called Speech After the Removal of the Larynx, and it was in four movements, and each movement basically sort of was trying to simulate different types of ways that you would, sort of be trying to make noise without actually speaking. And it's sort of like I imagine it almost as this like seance where it's sort of the voice from the other side. So coming into this piece, I really, all that is to say, I was very excited because it's the first sort of large scale, like 20-minute sort of symphony scale orchestra piece that I have written. And so I wanted to have both a sense of grandiosity to it, but also sections that were more chambery and smaller to try to sort of like play with scale a little bit. And that was my first impulse coming into this piece.
Now, before we get into the nitty gritty of the piece North Woods, which is the new work, I know that you have collaborated with the group what is it,
Sandbox
San,
Percussion?
um,
Oh, San Fermin, my band.
San Fermin. Yes,
Yes. Yeah,
I
yeah,
didn't know how to pronounce it. Whether there was a Fermin or a Fermin.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. San Fermin, but it's anything you want. It's fine.
And so you've what is the chamber group made of? What does that mean?
Yeah, so my basically I I went to college for composition. I was, when I basically wanted to be a composer coming out of school. But I also always had played in rock bands as a a high schooler and as an undergrad. And right out of college, I went to the Banff Center for the Arts, and I wrote this record that I sort of intended to be almost like just like a song cycle. And I named it San Fermin, and I basically, put up one song on the internet from that. And very weirdly, and I'd say very unusually, like I was basically offered like a indie rock record deal from that. And so I was kind of like, it sort of took me for this funny loop. And that song cycle did have kind of more. There were some things that felt really like songs, and then there was these sort of more almost like orchestral type interludes. But once I got this record deal and the label wanted to put us on tour, I sort of reformatted it as a band. And that really formed like the first 8 years of my career, was touring with this band, San Fermin. And the band is my best friend, Alan, who's a singer, another singer, Claire. So we have two vocalists, and then it's keyboard, and there's a brass section, and there's drums and guitar, and one of the singers also plays violin. So it's actually a fairly rich palette especially for like a sort of a band type thing.
Yeah, very
And
cool.
yeah, and we just sort of ended up like in a way that I really was not expecting. On the like the touring circuit, and we were playing at Lollapalooza and all these big festivals and on TV and all this stuff, and it was really not what I was aiming for.
Yeah.
But I was happy to do it, and and so in a funny way, that was really the most formative experience of my sort of earlier career, was working with these band members who were all classically trained but are also were working on selling this music to people on the Carson Daly show or whatever. So it had this sort of funny dual kind of life where it was both all through composed, like all notated out, but then performed as if it was a rock band.
So 5 records.
Yeah.
That's considerable output already to have under your belt. That's amazing. One of the things that struck me about the music that I heard in your submission for the Ellis-Beauregard Foundation was there's and it's interesting to know about the pop
Mhm.
music because there's a rhythmic drive that seems to be a very important part of your music. Um, and how does that factor into now you chose this novel by Daniel Mason as the inspiration for North Woods?
Mhm.
Can you tell us about your piece?
Yeah, yeah. So Northwoods, I was right after I got the commission. I was headed to McDowell Colony, or I guess it's just called McDowell now. It's like an artist residency in New Hampshire. And when I was going up there, I thought, oh, I wanted to work on this piece, but I didn't have an idea yet for what I wanted to do. Um, and I came across this novel. It's based basically it follows the history of a sort of an imaginary cabin in the Massachusetts woods, from like 1600 until present day, and it basically follows each chapter follows a different denizen of this cabin. So there's like chapters about the Puritans who made it, but then there's like one about some like very sort of lusty beetles who are like burrowing into the wood and mating, and then there's one about like an artist who's there, and basically it has this amazing scope to it where the each chapter feels really um, really immediate, but that over the course of this whole piece you get this real big sense of time. And so I wanted to play with this piece. I wanted to play with this idea of time, and this sort of these different scales of experience. So it's in three movements, and the first movement is called Runaways, and that's kind of I think on like a more of a human scale, and it sort of just imagines in a almost programmatic way. It sort of imagines uh, kind of like the maybe a pair of runaway lovers or something that from who started this, who built this cabin, and it's very sort of rhythmic, as you say. There's a real drive to it, and there's almost like it feels like a chase scene almost. So that's the first movement, and the second movement is called Beetles and Blight, and it's the first part of that movement is just very very small. So you're working with soloists within the orchestra. So suddenly you go from this big sort of intense thing to this very almost chambery size. And I wanted it to feel like it was on a Beatles scale in a way. And then the second part of that movement, the sort of the like sad history of that is that a lot of these Beatles sort of spread really intense like Dutch elm disease and all these sort of environmental blights, and so it kind of takes this little material from earlier and then sort of explodes it in this big fugue, that kind of like takes over the orchestra. And then the third movement is called Elm, and I just sort of imagined it on like the scale of a tree, how a tree feels time. And so I took a lot of the same melodic and harmonic material from the Beatles section and from the Runaways section, and just stretched it like so that it's basically unrecognizable, and it has a lot more sort of it feels a little more like sort of transcendentalist or something. Like it has this kind of unanswered question kind of feeling to it. And so I kind of wanted these three movements to each be made of the same stuff, but to be treated really really differently. Because I grew up in the North Woods, I grew up in Massachusetts, and I know this sort of feeling of this connection with the environment and the surroundings, I really felt growing up. But obviously, there's different scales of life, and so I kind of wanted to put those all together to say something you know, about that environment and about maybe humans' relationship with the environment.
So you mentioned as a programmatic element. I mean, there's because although you're not specifically programmatic. This happens, this happens, this happens. But you're evoking a feeling and a certain events. Are there any things? Is there anything in the orchestration or the particular music that is specific to like, oh, we have to listen for that kind of thing? That would say, okay, that's when that happens.
Yeah, not really. I mean, this sort of like Berlioz kind of, symphony fantastique. I don't think it's not quite that sort of like, okay, here's where he gets beheaded.
Yeah.
But I do think that I find that especially with a large scale instrumental work, that audiences often kind of, they need something to a way in,
Yeah.
or it's nice to give them a way in, I should say.
Yeah.
So I don't think that there's really anything like plot wise that I would really point to, but there's in the second movement there's these sort of like I really there's a part where basically there's this sort of little skittering sound that feels like a beetle, and then it kind of goes up and down over these things. And I was sort of imagining it almost as if like this beetle was climbing over the decomposing bodies of the lovers from the first one.
Wow.
And so those like little the things that it's climbing over are made of their material, but that's been sort of decomposing. And so there's things like that that happen throughout the piece, and then in the last movement, the elm, the strings from the elm are literally the exact same chords that are played in the space of about 5 seconds when you introduce the beetle, but they take, 5 minutes. And so you can hear these kind of connections, whether or not you hear them consciously or if it just feels sort of intuited. I think that's kind of the idea there. And then there's a little sort of like, I guess like a little sort of secret ending that happens where there's something sort of unexpected happens that brings back music from the beginning, but in a way that I hope the audience will be a little bit surprised by, which maybe I won't give away now. But so there,
I'm
yeah,
curious. You mentioned stretching things out. Is that like the rings of the tree?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
And one other question. Since a bunch of your work has involved words and setting
Hmm.
words, how has this process been different for you? Because I know for myself as it, having something that's a structure of a song, a lyric, a poem is, so helpful.
Yeah.
How was this process different for you?
I think I had to, it's a great question, and I really had to think about it because, um, yeah, like 20 minutes is a long time to say something, without, words, without a story. You really have to sort of um, build some kind of an armature to hang your piece on. And I think that was one of the reasons I went to a novel for it, was that I really wanted, um, to think of each section as related to something kind of, yeah, that was at least in my mind kind of programmatic, even though I don't really want the audience to be following along, like this is what's going on here, this is what's going, but I kind of needed this idea of um, relationships between different kinds of uh, yeah, different kinds of consciousness in a way. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, the answer is I think basically that I still thought about it in a kind of a texty way, in that
Well,
didn't really,
telling stories. I
I
mean
felt like I was
that
telling a story, and I
yeah.
think that with San Fermin, that's always what I did. Whereas like I would write these, sort of concept albums that were, an hour long, and there's a lot of instrumental music on them, but then there's also these songs. But I was thinking about it as one big story, one big kind of broad thing. And I think I've realized that that's what animates me as a composer mostly. I'm not one of these composers that are, really excited about like abstract formal stuff. Like I like telling a story.
Hmm.
And whether that story is exactly what the audience, what I tell the audience versus what they make of it, that almost doesn't matter. I just need a reason to write the story.
Right, right. People can have their own takeaway.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
yeah. Well, the orchestra and I are, and our audience are really looking forward to hearing the world premiere of Northwoods by you. And you're also going to be people will have a chance to meet you in person because you and I will be doing a um, informal lunch and learn at the Versant Power Astronomy Center at the University of Maine on the campus of the university. That's going to be on Friday, January 30th at 12 noon. We'll have a chance to um, hear more about the piece and more of the music that you've written, as well. I'll get into some of the Beethoven and Mozart that's also on the program. So we're really looking forward to having you with us, Ellis, and thank you so much for opening up our ears and our eyes to the music you've written.
Thank you very much. I'm very much looking forward to it, and can't wait to collaborate with you. And also, Anthony, I'm really excited to hear you play. I love that Mozart so much, so it's going to be a real treat. So, thank you all, and excited to see you soon.
We'll see you soon. Thank you,
Thanks,
Ellis.
Ellis. See you soon.
You.
Uh, so, Anthony, um, you're making your debut in Bangor.
Yeah.
Have
Yes.
you been to Maine before?
No, I've never, but it's been on my bucket list, so I'm really excited.
Well, you're
Very
coming to the
Oh,
best part of Maine. I'm just saying, like
heard,
part.
yeah.
heard.
We love it. We love it. Absolutely love
Yeah.
it. And I'm thrilled that you're bringing the Mozart concerto with you. I was reading a little bit about the Mozart, and I didn't realize that he had been commissioned to write three flute concerti, and I think like four flute quartets or something, and didn't fulfill the complete commission. Um, so that's why he absconded with the oboe concerto as the second flute concerto. It's
What
not.
a slacker.
Yes.
Just kidding.
And the man Ferdinand Dijon that commissioned him was so upset he only paid him less than half of what he originally offered
Yeah,
about that. So
but you are playing what Mozart did write for flute with all full intention, and
Mm.
this is it. This piece is such an iconic flute solo piece. Is it daunting for you to play this work?
that's a great question, and I it was daunting. Maybe tomorrow it will be daunting, but I think it's such an amazing opportunity to be able to play it with you and with the symphony because as flute players, I learned it for the first time when I was probably 13, It's one of the first major things you learn. You end up playing it for every college audition, every professional orchestral audition. And so there's a lot of stress and trauma around this piece. When I'm telling people that I'm playing this, I'm genuinely excited, but I tell another flutist and I'm like, oh my God, that must be so scary. And for me, like I said, it's going to be so fun playing it with the orchestra and not for an audition because I'll just be able to be free from kind of the constraints of having to play it absolutely perfectly for an orchestral audition or for an audition, and I can really focus on actually making music. So I'm
Yeah.
thrilled about that.
Well, it's such a. I mean, Mozart's. It's like is pristine in its conception, and I know as performers we endeavor to play everything. Everything is heard, whereas with the romantic pieces you can kind of slosh through things and not every note's heard. Um, but the idea that you've been playing this since you were 13 is kind of like it's your friend that's always with you, uh,
Yes.
or your enemy, I suppose. But I think your friend that you get to come back, you get to bring with you, and I think that's lovely.
It is lovely. I will say one thing, because it's been with me for so long, every time I bring it back, I always end up starting at the place I was when I was 13. So I'm having to rework playing it in the way that I play now. It's
But
fun.
I have to imagine that, yeah, in thinking that, going a little further with that, when you revisit it, I know that there are certain things that you learn a certain way, and it's like hard to get out of playing it that way. But with every 5 years as you get older, you're very different, and the way that it's when you learn a piece like this at that young age, it's like, oh, these are easy notes, and I know technically how to do it, and then other levels of maturity and depth come in as you get older, so it's like a totally different piece.
Yeah, it is quite amazing.
And often figures into the second movement because that's when like the soulfulness of what the piece, what Mozart expressing himself in a certain way. The piece, Renia, if you want to bring up the slide, the piece is in
Mhm.
three movements. Or actually, well, Mozart himself, of course, was known for many many works. Um, uh, Born in Austria and in the late 1700s. 41 symphonies, a number of concerti, piano concerti. I can't remember how many, 30, over 30 piano concerti,
Mhm.
which is amazing. Over 600 published works, his operas. I mean, the catalog. Um,
Like I
it,
said, slacker.
oh my goodness, and the Requiem, which
Yeah.
if anybody's seen the movie Amadeus, of course, figures very prominently in the score for that. and the flute concerto is uh, really one of those. I think it is the epitome of what Mozart is as a composer. It's in cast in three movements, traditional, fast, slow, fast, um, and and really utilizes. Oh, let me ask you this: is there anything about? I mean, had the flute fully developed? Were there any changes to the flute? And what kind of flute was this written for? Um,
Sure.
yeah.
So the flute that Mozart was writing for was very different than the flute that we play today. The flute that Mozart was writing on would have most likely been a one-keyed wooden flute. So you just have one metal key for the pinky, and then everything else, all of the keys are just holes inside of the wood. So it's much closer to a Baroque transverse flute, but we're slightly further than that. So you were writing for this instrument, which I'm so curious about, because when the commission was made, he wanted three simple concerti. This piece is anything but simple. I mean,
Right.
not only musically, it's so wonderful, but technically, flutistically, on the flute that I play today, that is not wood, that is silver and gold, and has all the keys that we know today. It's actually quite tricky in many places, but the flute that Mozart was writing for would have shown very easily in the keys of G major and D major. So actually, I think a lot of the technical stuff would have been potentially slightly easier on
Ah,
this instrument.
that's fascinating.
Mhm.
Now, so the evolution though from the you said transverse
Mhm.
flute as opposed to the recorder, like because the recorder, like when did that shift happen? you know?
Oh my gosh, that's a great question. I mean, I know you had recorders well earlier. You had them in medieval era. I guess I'm not sure exactly when the transition would have happened, but
But I mean, who would have had that idea to
it's
like, oh, I think we want to spend the rest of our lives going like this.
yeah, right. I would love to know. I would love to know. It's the most natural position, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
What other concerti? I mean, the Mozart is iconic. What other repertoire is part of like your life? What do you like to play?
Mozart is amazing. Um, some other concertos that are amazing that I've done recently are the Jacques Ibert concerto for
Yeah.
flute, which is another iconic work, very different side of the coin, dazzling, stunning, a little jazzy. The Carl Nielsen flute concerto,
Hmm.
which is another outstanding, huge work. Um, the flute concertos of CPE Bach. He wrote a whole bunch of concertos, and there are some really great melodies and some virtuosic passages in there. Um, yeah, I mean, there's so much amazing music that I love to play.
Yeah. Do you favor that soloistic kind of thing or chamber music? I imagine you play chamber music as well.
Yeah, I play quite a bit of chamber music, quite a lot of solo music, and also orchestral music. Um, But I'm sorry, what is your
Well,
oh, which one do I prefer? Which one do I prefer?
yeah.
Sorry. I love doing it all, obviously. I love I think I shine in a solo role. I love playing chamber music. I love playing with others and creating a blend of sound and getting into the nitty-gritties of matching timing and articulation. Um, I absolutely love it, but I really enjoy some of the freedom and extraness that can come from doing a solo work and communicating it that way, and I love to do that as well.
Now you're coming to us through the Young Concert Artists. What was that process of um, getting involved with YCA?
Sure. So I joined YCA in 2016 in my senior year of undergrad. Um, and after, winning the auditions, which I've known about Young Concert Artists since I was probably 11. or 12,
Uh-huh.
and it was always on my radar. So many of my favorite musicians growing up went through this organization, so it was always there. And I ended up taking an orchestral audition, funnily enough. And the only comment I got back was that I played too soloistically, which is, you know,
Oh,
so I said, okay, here, now if that's your only comment, I'm going to join the Young Concert Artists and be a soloist. And so, that I pulled the trigger then, and it's been so amazing working with them, not only getting opportunities like this to be able to work with you and Bangor, but also they do a lot of work in schools and educational department, which is another aspect I'm passionate about, and that we'll do in my time in Maine as well. And they're really so caring and helpful and helping me, create the career that I'm dreaming of.
that's amazing. And you mentioned that the events you'll be with us for on February 2nd. We're very grateful to you that you're going to be giving a flute master class on Monday, February 2nd at Minsky Recital Hall on the campus of the University of Maine in the School of Music, and also a flute techniques class
Right.
that evening as well, also in Minsky. And this is free and open to the public. You don't need to play the flute to attend. I think it's fascinating. I recommend that all the string players come because I always enjoy um, master classes that are taught by someone who's not the you know not the teacher of the instrument that's being featured, that sort of thing, because there's always something really fascinating to learn, and especially if you don't know about flute technique, this is a great opportunity with a great soloist, Anthony Trionfo. Um, so we are so excited to have you with us and playing the Mozart, and we're going to have a good time.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I'm gonna go practice it probably right after this.
All right, and we'll have some lobster. I see lobster in your future.
Okay, great.
Ooh,
I'm in.
do have a little bit of that here in Maine.
Oh, great. Oh, I'm so looking forward to it.
It's nice to chat with you, Anthony. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
We'll see you
Great.
soon.
We'll
Okay.
see you real soon. Thank you.
Yeah, bye.
Boy, that was great. Lucas, I have to say that the first time I heard Anthony play, he was playing as principal flute with Pro Musica Chamber Orchestra in Columbus, Ohio, and I heard a recording. They had recorded a concert, and I was watching the digital performance, much like we do, record our concerts and do the digital release
Uh-huh.
afterwards. And his sound, it's like crystal. I mean,
Hmm.
it's so, I was literally like, wait a minute, who is that flutist?
Wow.
It's just beautiful. I'm so excited to bring him here to our audiences because flute solo is not something you hear often, right? I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but like violin, piano, right? I mean, they're
Well,
some more standard
right. Yeah, exactly. And
instruments,
the repertoire is limited. It doesn't,
right?
um, I
Doesn't lend
mentioned that just
itself to
Mozart
like,
himself wrote over 30 concerti for the piano. So,
right?
there's,
Exactly. So it's
uh,
exciting to bring someone here who's playing something that's not, let's say, so-called a standard instrument.
yeah,
But
absolutely.
again, like just the most beautiful sound and just the most, nice individual, right? Oh my
Definitely,
God.
definitely.
Yeah.
We only work with nice people.
We only work
So,
with nice people. Yeah, absolutely. It's a rule. All right. Well, let's you and I jump back in and talk a little bit more about what else is on this program, which is the Beethoven.
Beethoven's sixth symphony, and Beethoven, of course, German composer and pianist, and he toggled the classical and romantic eras. He kind of helped usher in the romantic era, and the sixth symphony. Uh, well, you see there that he wrote nine symphonies, and I'm grateful that over my time, this is my 16th season with the orchestra, and we've had a chance to go through all of Beethoven's symphonies during that time, and now coming back and revisiting um, uh, a work that we had done in the earlier part of my tenure is really a joy for me.
That's great.
Of course, his piano concerti and violin concerto, uh, the the oratorios and opera, the Fidelio, lots of chamber music. So prolific with his music. Um, Now, I will mention that, like we spoke to Ellis earlier about his work, and he mentioned it being programmatic and the idea of telling stories. Um, uh, there are typically two camps of composers in this classical era of writing music that is either pure, which is all about the notes and how the notes and the motives and the turn and spin into melodies and this and that, as opposed to programmatic, telling a story through the music. Um, the symphony that Beethoven had written, the Fifth Symphony, for instance, has a motive, three G's and an E flat, ba 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 ba, that is not telling a story. It is a motive that is then brought throughout the piece in various ways. Whereas the Sixth Symphony is a programmatic piece and it tells events in a sequence that you really get the idea of a day in the country, and the scene by the brook, and the country folk gather and dance, and then there's a thunderstorm, and then the sun comes out and everybody celebrates at the end of the storm. So there's a real story to this. Many people actually got to know this piece because of the movie Fantasia, of course.
The original
Um,
Fantasia.
yeah, the original, yeah, the first Fantasia.
Yeah.
Uh, the so it's not unusual for people to have, when they hear music, they will see the Disney images in their head.
Yes, Bacchus is in there with his
Exactly.
wine, and the
And Zeus
thunderstorm.
throwing thunderbolts and that sort
Thunderbolts,
of
that's
thing.
right, from the sky,
Yeah.
running for shelter. Yeah, great.
um, one of the unusual things about this work is that it is in five movements. Typically, a symphony would be in four, where you'd have a faster first movement, a slow second movement, um, a um, a scherzo or a minuet, a waltz of some sort, and then a um, a virtuoso sort of a fast movement at the end on the fourth one. So we get the first three movements in a kind of typical style, but then he goes in a completely different path with the allegro, the thunderstorm, that is absolutely programmatic, and you first hear the little droplets of rain on the roof coming down, and then it blows up into a full storm, and then the finale is not a fast virtuoso rousing sort of thing. It is actually it is just a joyful swaying sort of dance, in a way, variations on a theme that keeps on unfolding and unfolding and unfolding. So not your typical kind of symphony. You can see there in the bottom of the left corner of your screen, that is an image of the original manuscript of this work, and it I can't. It's hard to see, but I think that might be the. I can't tell if it's the first movement or not.
Yeah, well, so it's image. What I did was I put this image below that is imitated above, and you see this
Oh,
bar
okay, okay,
with the
great, great,
big
great, great. Yeah,
fermata is
yeah,
actually right here. You
perfect.
can see my arrow. That's that big
Yeah.
fermata bar right there. So that is like the first, 6, 7 bars. Yep.
And when I do this symphony, I think of, if anybody knows minimalistic music, the music of John Adams and um, Steve Reich and that sort of thing. I think that Beethoven was one of the original minimalists, because you'll hear this motive, and it just keeps on happening
Keeps going.
over and over and over. And the idea of taking this little motive and through patterns, growing it, growing it, and growing it, and suddenly you have this large work. That's what the first movement does. Um,
Yeah.
Whereas the second movement um, is so ingenious in its depiction of a babbling brook and the gentle lulling of the water as you hear the sounds of nature around.
Mhm.
Um, so looking forward to delving into this piece with the Bangor Symphony Orchestra for our third Masterworks concert, Ethereal Storytelling,
Yes.
coming up on February 1st
Yeah.
at 3 o'clock at the Collins Center for the Arts.
Yes, we are really looking forward to it. And we also have digital concert tickets available for $10. You can get those on our website. The digital concert will be available for 2 weeks from February 6th through the 20th. And this concert will also be rebroadcast on Maine Public Classical on Wednesday, February 11th at 8 o'clock p.m. And you can access that online through mainepublic.org or on your radio at 106.1 FM right here in Maine. So thank you so much for joining us for this pre-concert talk. I know I learned a lot from Ellis, especially. I read North Woods. You can get it. I got it actually right at the Briar Patch right here in downtown Bangor. And it is a fascinating book. And hearing him talk about its programmatic nature and then how he put his piece on it is great. And of course, getting to know Anthony a little bit more personally, and it'll be great to have him here not only performing, but working in an educational capacity with the students at the university. So hope you all can join us for and the Lunch and Learn, right? I mean, we just have so much going on, right? Check out
Yes.
our website, it's all there, if I don't remember everything. But thanks again to UBS Argosy Wealth Management, our pre-concert talk sponsor. Everything is on our website, and this nifty little QR code, if you come up nice close to your TV set, you can click that with your phone and it'll take you right to our website. So thank you so much for joining us again. And Lucas, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Renia. And we'll see all of you on February 1st.
See you all on February 1st. Bye.